My house was broken into on Christmas Eve, home alone. This happened in 2019. I was in my second year of college and living in a townhome about a 10-minute walk from campus. I lived with two other girls at the time, but they were all back at their parents' house for the holiday. I work in healthcare and was working Christmas this year. A little bit of a backstory: there used to be four of us living there, but one girl had moved out due to issues with her boyfriend. He was a jackass who abused our kindness on allowing him to stay there, was only supposed to come every so often but basically ended up living there. We told her she needed to kick him out after an incident with him one night after he got physical with her and verbally abusive with the rest of us. She wouldn't listen and we told her we would have to talk to the landlord then. Long story short, she ended up moving out and left on bad terms with us. On another side note here, I have been in physically/mentally abusive relationship before. So I understand how things may have been going for her. I tried my best for 2 years at that point to help open her eyes to the abuse and get her away from him. At this point it was affecting everyone and we didn't feel safe with him there, etc. So she moved out. Okay, back to the story. It was Christmas Eve and I worked the next day, so I was getting ready for bed, locked the doors, turned the lights off and went downstairs where my bedroom was. I was scrolling on TikTok for about an hour. It was Christmas Day at this point, when I heard what sounded like the chairs in the kitchen move. The kitchen is right above my bedroom. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors next door as we share the same walls and sometimes they can be loud. But I remembered one of them texting me and asking me to bring in a package they were expecting while they were all gone at home. The noise was short-lived and so I just brushed it off. Next thing I know, my bedroom door is being opened slowly. In this moment I get a flashback and remember my second grade teacher telling us about the time someone broke into her house and she acted as if she were asleep, so if they were just there to rob her they wouldn't feel the need to hurt her if she saw them, but my freaking phone screen is lighting up my scared jaw-dropped face. So I can't act like I'm asleep. Where I'm laying in bed faces directly to the door, so we're just looking right at each other. So there I was laying in my bed shitting myself while this guy has one foot in my bedroom with the door cracked open. It felt like an eternity, but in reality was probably more like 10 seconds of us looking at one another. He slowly takes his foot out and closes my door. I sit there just in complete utter shock. I couldn't make out what he looked like as my eyes were adjusting to the dark again from the phone screen. All I could see was a backwards baseball cap. I knew I had to call the police, but my anxious ass knew if I called it would alert my parents' phones that I called. Me being dumb as hell was like, well, I don't want to make them worry. Also, I was scared he might still be somewhere in the house and I didn't know what he would do if he heard me call. So I text the guy I was seeing at the time and tell him some random guy just broke into my house and came into my room. He snapped me out of it and told me to call the police, and so I did. The dispatcher asked me if I felt comfortable to go unlock the front door for them so they didn't have to break it down. And I told her, no way, I don't care if the door is broken, I'm not going up there alone. A couple minutes later I see flashlights shining through my window. I hear the police knocking at the door and announcing themselves. They got in and asked me where I was. I came out of my room and they came and got me. They told me to wait on the back porch while two of them searched the house and one stayed with me. It was like that shit you see in the movies where they have their guns and turn the corner with their partner and everything. They didn't find anyone, and I said nothing looked like it had been taken. They even tried to get fingerprints but were unsuccessful. They then started asking me questions and informed me that the back door was unlocked and had no signs it had been broken. I told them I locked it. Luckily the guy I was talking to stayed with me that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept having to go check every inch of the house over and over. I placed chairs under the door handles on the front door, back door, in my bedroom. The next day I informed our landlord and she refused to come out and change the locks, and she never ended up changing them for the rest of the time we lived there. Every time I go to bed now I triple check all the doors have been locked. Doesn't matter where I am. I have a dog now and he helps my anxiety of intruders, as well a recent purchase of a Ring doorbell. I believe it was our old roommate's boyfriend. I think they may have made an extra key for him because he was basically living there. But I don't understand why he didn't do anything to me, the house, or our belongings. If it were someone random, I don't know why they wouldn't have done what they intended, and there could be many different possibilities. I don't know what their intentions were that night, but to the man who broke into my house on Christmas Eve, let's not meet again. I was a kid, home alone, and a fake Girl Scout cookie salesman wouldn't leave. Years ago when I was 11, I was staying home alone with only my little brother who was 7. At that time, it was about 9 p.m., dark, and pouring rain. and we were reading in our room, right next to the front door, with a big window and open blinds. That's when I hear the front doorbell ring followed by knocking. I thought my parents had arrived, strange though that they didn't use the garage or their keys. I looked outside to see their car, nothing but rain. As I approach the door, I hear a man's voice that was not my father's yell through the torrent. "Would you like some cookies? We're selling Girl Scout cookies." I'm shocked at this, considering the weather and time of day. Saying nothing, I check the peephole and peer through the side window only to see it was not a father with his girl as I expected. My heart dropped. Standing there was just a fully grown man, maybe in his late 50s, no box of cookies in sight, soaking on my doorstep. I can remember the gut-wrenching feeling of having to check the locks while he was right on the other side. For sure, he heard this. The two locks were the only thing separating myself and brother from a potential monster. He continued to knock and mention his cookies, as I considered calling the cops. That's when I remembered the blinds were open in my room where my brother was, with the light on. As I turn the corner into the doorway, I see the man carefully peering into our window. Possibly eyeing my brother, distracted in his book. My heart was pounding now as I began to panic. In a move that took all of my willpower, I quickly turned off the lights and ran over to the window to close the blinds, in full view of the man. As fast as I could, I double-checked all the locks in the house, closed all the blinds, and told my brother to go hang out in one of the big closets in the interior of the house, no windows. I didn't tell him what was going on so he wouldn't be frightened, and for some reason I never did call the cops or my parents. I just waited in the hallway until he left. Still thinking about it gives me shivers that so many things could have gone wrong that night. My worst fear since is a stranger getting to the unlocked door before I do. Home alone at night, thank goodness for dogs. This happened to me just last Tuesday and I can't stop thinking about it. I'll start this story by saying I'm a 30-year-old female who lives with my fiancé and our two dogs. I have two huskies, one is 2 and one is 4 months old. My huskies are not guard dogs to save their life. They don't bark nor howl. These dogs just love people so much. My BIL and friends have walked in on multiple occasions and the dogs don't make a peep, so anyways, it's 8 p.m. It's dark out, I'm home alone. Fiancé had a hockey game. I'm in the bathroom with the door closed and the blow dryer going, so I can't really hear anything going on around me. That is, until I hear one of the dogs howl. I stop the blow dryer and listen, thinking that the dogs are fighting again. Then I hear a faint knock and the dogs start going apeshit. Barking, howling, jumping into the bay window so bad I thought they'd break it. I am thinking what the fuck is making them go crazy like that? Maybe a dog or a skunk. I look out my bedroom window as it was the closest view to the front door for me. Well, lo and behold, there's two black men in hoodies, not racist just giving the description, standing at the front door. They start knocking louder and this time my 2-year-old husky jumps from the bay window to the front door and starts growling and ramming his body into the door. I'm watching this from my bedroom. As the dog jumps into the door, one of the men jumps back startled. Looks at the other guy and they just walk away. I called my fiancé to get home ASAP. I watched them walk away down the road. They weren't selling anything as they didn't stop at any other houses. I was so creeped out, and still am. Thank goodness for my crazy dogs. Scary men at my door, let's not meet again. Attempted break-in whilst I was home alone, so I've had quite a few bad experiences with strange people in my house. From when I was young, an old man would come banging on our door late at night demanding to see me, causing me to have to hide in the house and not be allowed into my garden alone for years. Or when a man came knocking on our door late at night with a knife because he mistook our house for my neighbor's. These experiences all caused me to be very cautious about opening the front door to anyone or even being in the house alone. Especially at night, but one evening was definitely the worst. It was around 6 p.m. in November 2018. I'm from England, meaning it was already pitch black outside at this time of the year. I had just got home from work and was sat in my room upstairs just watching YouTube on my laptop. My mom shouted up to me that she was just going to pick my brother up from work and would be stopping off at the petrol station on the way back, so she would be gone for a little bit, and asked if I wanted to come. I said no and carried on with my video. I heard her close the front door and pull out of the driveway. I was 17 at the time, so being home alone at night was nothing new to me and I was used to the eerie feeling of it. But after around 10 minutes I started hearing noises coming from downstairs. At first I thought nothing of it and just related it to my cat noisily searching for food in an empty bowl. until I remembered him sitting at the end of my bed. I paused my video and listened more at the sound of banging on the back door. This instantly creeped me out, until it was followed by the sound of keys jangling, and I just thought, oh, my mom must have just dropped my brother off before going to the petrol station and was just trying to go outside, so I let the noise continue as I kept watching my video. He can get quite angry sometimes, so the loud banging was nothing out of the ordinary, but it just kept carrying on, banging and the sounds of keys jangling, then dropping, then banging again. Then the fear really hit me. I don't think it's him. I walked out of my room slowly and sat on the stairs listening carefully to the noise. It definitely wasn't him. I'm a very anxious person, and everyone gets those times late at night when they hear noises and immediately think the worst. This was just one of those, I told myself. So I decided to bite the bullet and just walk straight into the kitchen and face whatever it was causing the noise. Our kitchen has the door straight to the garden. But as I turned the corner into the kitchen, I heard a loud bang and clatter of footsteps run away. The cat flap had been ripped off the door and there was plastic from it everywhere. In fear, I still tried to console myself into thinking it could be anything other than people breaking in. I sat back on the stairs and called my mom just to check again that it wasn't my brother home early and just in a bad mood. But then he answered my mom's phone, while still in the car. Are you at home? I shouted at him, no. Then my voice started to break with terror. Please be serious. Are you at home right now? No. What do you want? Even though he said he wasn't, I still begged in my mind that he was joking just to get a scare out of me, but he heard how scared I was and began to worry. I explained to him what happened and he started to scream at me to call the police. He's never been the protective type, but I could tell now he was really worried and told my mom to rush back home straight away. Whilst dialing 999, I tried so hard to stay calm. I told them exactly what was happening as I hid back in my room with the door tightly locked. Then I heard talking and the banging of doors again downstairs. They were back. I burst into tears to the dispatcher out of pure fear and sat on the phone for what felt like forever until my mom, brother, and police all pulled up at the same time. Everyone charged through the house to the back door and we instantly saw what they'd done. The people saw the keys to the back door on the side in the kitchen. Took a broom from outside, broke it in half on the door handle, got the broom through the cat flap, knocked the keys off the side and pulled them through the cat flap. Although, out of pure luck, as they broke the broom in half, they also managed to snap off the door handle, making it impossible for it to be opened from the outside. Otherwise, they would have gotten no questions asked and I would have been sat quietly in my room completely oblivious. It was clear afterward that they had been watching the house for a while, waiting until the exact moment they saw my mom's car pull out of the drive. I'm not sure if they knew I was there alone or not. But I know that after they initially saw me and ran away, they made a choice to come back. So dickheads who don't know how to open doors properly. Let's not meet. Smiley face. PS. Always keep your keys in a place that someone breaking a window or cat flap can't reach. Home alone. I let a man in to read our upstairs gas meter. I was 12 and my older sister and I were home alone for the weekend. I was waiting for a friend to pick me up, and getting restless. There was a knock on the door. Thinking it was her, I ran to answer it without checking through the peephole. A man was standing there with a clipboard and said he needed to check our gas meter. I was entrenched in the disappointment of my friend still not having arrived, so just told him, yeah, sure, whatever you need to do. I didn't notice at the time, but he wasn't dressed as a city official. He had on a green and purple shirt with bold stripes like the host of Blue's Clues. He came in and immediately went up the stairs to where our bedrooms were and walked into the open door of my room, the typical girly girl room with pink and glitter. Thank God, my sister came down the stairs at almost that exact moment. She said, "Oh, is that Daphne's dad? Why is he going upstairs?" And I complained about how Daphne wasn't here and was going on about how unreliable she was when my sister cut me off. Wait, if Daphne isn't here, who is that? I said, he's here to read the gas meters. Her face turned white. She flung open the front door and dragged me out, hand clamped over my protesting mouth. She said our gas meters are outside. Neither of us had a cell phone. It was the 60s, and obviously weren't going back in the house to call authorities on the landline phone. Then my ever-resourceful sister had a stroke of genius. A man was walking right by our house and she motioned him over. She called, loudly, into the house, "Oh, Dad, it's good you're home. A man from the city is here to read the gas meters upstairs." And just like she'd hoped, this man on the street said, "What are you talking about?" The man in the striped shirt bolted out of the house. The man on street asked us repeatedly if we were okay, if we needed him to stay and wait in the yard with us until our parents came home. He was very sweet. We were so startled that we barely thanked him before slamming and locking the doors and windows. As irate as my sister was that I let someone in the house, she begged me not to call the authorities, because my parents left her in charge and she worried she'd be in trouble. I didn't want to catch any heat from carelessly allowing some guy in. So I was on the same page. 3 weeks later, a girl in our community went missing. Same MO, she was home alone and authorities found the door open and no signs of forced entry. My sister and I discussed our options, but deep down knew we had no choice but to come clean. We told the police everything. I don't know if it ever helped, but they did tell us they had reason to believe it was the same man. They also tracked down the man who helped us on the street. Turns out we already knew him. He worked in the butcher shop, we just didn't recognize him. He was lifelong friends with the family after that. Our parents were mortified. They weren't angry with us, just glad we were okay, though they did review all the rules of caution and didn't leave us home alone for a while. They found the girl and say she'd been held for a few days and then burned alive. They never caught the man, but fear not, he was in what appeared to be his early 30s in the 1960s, so in any case he has to be dead by now. I just thank God every day for my sister's resourcefulness and quick action. False meter reader, let's not meet. Home alone, or so I thought. This happened well over 10 years ago, so I'll try my best to describe the events accurately. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine by a big, double glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony are 2 trees, one I often used to climb up and down from the balcony. This balcony faced out to the street. One night when I was about 13-year-old girl, and my brother and mother weren't home, I was reading in bed with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside, but this didn't worry me as possums and bats are common in our area. Now I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony. As mentioned previously, the doors faced out towards the street where street lamp light was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow is tall, so it wasn't one of the neighbor kids that I'm friends with, and it wasn't my all of 5-foot mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying to not be noticed. They wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the streetlights behind them creating a dark silhouette. They moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still, that is, until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to open a glass door, my mom's doors to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing now. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in surely. All I had to do was wait for them to realize that, and then they would leave, right? Well, I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors until I saw his shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me. He couldn't know I can see him. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier, what if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it did not open, it was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief I was worried he had heard it. After this he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile phone as my mom thought me too young to have one yet, and the landline was at the other end of the house. But I was too scared to take my eyes off this person, even to call for help. I was silently crying. Tears falling down my cheeks as I internally prayed they would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said I could just break the glass, you know. Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on balcony moved out of sight and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent in telling her what happened. Eventually I got the message across and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had been reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school a block away. Since I walked that short distance daily, the police suspected that he had followed me or seen that I lived there and waited for me to be alone. So creepy dude who scared the hell out of a 13-year-old girl, let's not meet. Kidnapper stalking me while I'm home alone. So this happened to me on Thursday, April 25th, and I still can't shake off how terrifying and strange it was. So I was home alone, getting ready for my 12 o'clock college class that morning, and I opened my blinds to let some natural light in. I glanced out my window to see a man in his mid-30s wearing a baseball cap roaming around my property, with his hands on his hips, walking with a lot of weird confidence. Our yard is kind of like a cliff, and it looks over onto our 5 acres of property down below. I live in the PNW, so it's a pretty scenic view. I was really confused and thought maybe it was a worker that my mom had hired for our renovations on the house, admiring the view. I'm a little bit uncomfortable at this point cause the dude walks to the side of my house out of sight. I head upstairs to see him now roaming around my front yard and my driveway, looking at things, checking out my house, etc. He still hasn't seen me at this point. I call my dad and ask him if we have hired anyone to come by the house, and he says not that he knows of, and tells me he's going to call my mom and ask her. And then call me back. I'm waiting for the call when I notice this strange dude's car. It's a white Honda with no license plates, just parked parallel to my front door. The dude still hasn't seen me and he's still wandering around, so I take this as an opportunity to remember that we have a security system and I armed it, so if he did try to break in, it would immediately alert the police. If this was some sort of professional worker, he would have rang my doorbell or knocked at least once. He did neither. Just then I get a call back from my dad saying neither him or my mom hired anyone to come by today, and that I need to call our local police station immediately. I went back downstairs after making sure to lock every door and window upstairs and called my city's police station. I explained to a woman on the other end what is happening, and she decides that she's not going to send an officer out, and instead gives me a number to call their emergency dispatch line and told me to talk to them. I call the number she gave me, and immediately I get an automated message saying thank you for calling my town's named non-emergency hotline. Nobody is available to take your call right now. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. At this point I'm really irritated cause 15 minutes has passed and this weird dude is still lurking around my house while I'm home alone, and apparently that wasn't enough to warrant an emergency to the lady I called at my local police department. I hung up and decided to call 911. After getting in touch with the 911 operator, I was asked a series of questions about his appearance before they would even alert officers near me to start heading toward my house. The whole thing seemed really weird. Nobody was in a hurry to have officers come up to my place when I was a younger girl home alone with a strange dude. I asked the officer if I could stay on the line with her when she finally, after what seemed like forever, alerted police to come to where I was. She agreed, and I went back upstairs to check on the weird guy, and he's now sitting in his unplated Honda, either listening to a radio show extremely loudly, or on a phone call with someone through his car. It was a very prominent loud male voice coming from his car. Then all of a sudden I hear the tone you hear when someone hangs up on you, and the operator was no longer on the line. I was really confused when my thoughts were interrupted by an unrecognized phone number calling me. I assumed it was the operator calling me back, so I picked it up. Instead I was greeted by really creepy heavy breathing. I'm not sure whose it was, but it really freaked me out. I hung up immediately and dialed back 911. I had been pretty calm up to this point, but that phone call put me in panic mode. I got on the phone with another operator who already knew my situation and address before I even could explain it to her. She said the cops were on her way. 20 minutes had passed at this point. The dude is still here in his car, and the cops aren't. Keep in mind I live in a smaller town, so there is no reason why it took the cops as long as it did to come down. Finally this dude is leaving my driveway right as the cops pull in, and they stop him and ask him a few questions. A cop then comes to my door and hands me a sketchy looking flyer saying it was just a landscaper. He said he had an appointment. I was really relieved and irritated that it was just a dude my mom had hired. Until I realized it wasn't. I called my mom back and said, the cop said it was just a landscaper that you hired and that he had an appointment. My mom replies with, I can assure you we never hired a landscaper, we don't even need one. So creepy dude who could potentially be posing as a landscaper to traffic people or rob their houses. Let's not meet.